Good evening, everyone. I'm Vidushi Nautiyal, and today I'm going to be in conversation with Dr. Ruby Gupta. She's a best-selling author of 9 books, was honored at the International Agatha Christie Festival in England 2022, is an awardee of the GSE USA by Rotary International, a recipient of the Pratibha Samman Award for Journalism, and a double gold medalist in English literature. Welcome, Dr. Ruby Gupta. It's wonderful to have you here.
Good evening, everybody. I am so happy to be here, and thank you, Vidushi, for the wonderful introduction.
First of all, ma'am, I have to congratulate you. You were recently honored as the International Writer in Residence at the Agatha Christie Festival. How was that experience?
My God, Vidushi, it was truly a once-in-a-lifetime experience for me. Being honored at the International Agatha Christie Festival was absolutely awesome. And I had gone there in September, and they had invited me as the International Writer in Residence, as you know. And over there, I gave a talk on the influence of Agatha Christie on the rise of crime fiction in India. And there were many programs which I attended. And for me, as a young girl who considered Agatha Christie as her ideal, it was a dream come true.
It must have been. And how were you invited to the International Agatha Christie Foundation?
Actually, that's a very interesting story. The director of the festival had read some of my books, particularly my previous novel, which was No Illusions in Xanadu, which was published by Bloomsbury. And he thought that my writing style was like that of Agatha Christie, which is true because I was inspired by Agatha Christie. And the typical Agatha Christie tropes of complex plot, of multiple suspects, red herrings, the proverbial twist in the tale, all are there in my novels. So when he read my books, he didn't know me, so he reached out to my publisher, and then the publisher shared my email with him, and he reached out to me. And when he said they want to invite me, I couldn't believe it. I thought it was like a prank, but then it finally happened. So yeah, it was great.
My God, it must have been exciting. You know, you have authored these 9 amazing books, from racy murder mysteries to books on technical communication. How has that journey been like? How much has your writing style evolved over the years?
Actually, I started out writing a bit of fiction because out of my 9 books, 4 are non-fiction, academic books, and 5 are fiction. And my forte is crime fiction because I love crime fiction. So the journey has been long because my first book was published in 96, and it has been an absolutely roller coaster ride. I met some wonderful people on the way, and my academic books have helped students a lot. And of course, my fiction books have enlightened and enriched and entertained and educated the public at large. So it's been a wonderful journey.
As an author, you've just taken everyone as your target audience and made all kinds of books.
Exactly. I thought I should not leave any people left behind.
And you travel so much. You've been to France, Egypt, New Zealand, and of course now China. Does traveling give you the inspiration for your works?
Actually, it does. My last trip to Europe, I did get an idea, but I'm still to pen it down. But most importantly, the secret of Lifeng Pagoda comes from my trip to China. And Lifeng Pagoda is a place where I have actually visited. And that gave me the idea as to how to mold the climax of my latest novel, The Secret of Lifeng Pagoda. So definitely my travels have enriched my writing, I would say.
We're eagerly going to be waiting for a future work with a European-inspired story.
Yes, let's hope so. Keeping fingers crossed.
Definitely. You have this amazing experience of 25 years as a professor. How has that fueled your perspective?
Being a professor, it has fueled my perspective, certainly given me a wider range in terms of fiction as well as non-fiction, because all my non-fiction works are academic works, and I have written those particularly to help students, to write books which are going to help them in widening their knowledge base, but written in such a simple and lucid way that they don't feel that it is too much of a burden to read those books. So those are the kind of books I have written. And then I was the professor and HOD at the university. Wow. And that inspired me to write my first murder mystery novel, which was A Degree in Death, in which Professor Shantanu Bose was born. So yeah, I mean, I owe my writing journey to my job as a professor.
It's such an exciting thing. You go to new places and then you get inspired there. You were a professor, so you wrote a murder mystery on that. You went to China and wrote this amazing book. And coming to this amazing book, in your latest work, The Secret of Leifeng Pagoda, we once again meet the recurring character of Professor Shantanu Bose. How did you first come up with the character and what inspired you to continue with him?
That is again an interesting question. Like I said, my first murder mystery novel was A Degree in Death. And in A Degree in Death, what happens is that the locale is a campus on the Mussoorie Road, in which one after the other students start dying mysteriously. And upon investigation, it comes to light that they have been murdered. And there is an inspector, but the inspector is not able to make much headway. And there is a professor in the university who then starts investigating. He's an amateur detective and he's a world-renowned nano expert as well. And I created him because that world was close to me. I am myself a professor. So you can say that Professor Shantanu Bose is my alter ego. So wherever I have been, Shantanu Bose goes to all those places. And why I continued with Professor Shantanu Bose was because many of my readers, after reading A Degree in Death, they loved Shantanu Bose so much that they wanted him to be in the next adventure, in the next murder mystery. So I had no choice but to include him. And then he was complete as a detective because he had, to quote, like Agatha Christie's detective is Hercule Poirot, who works on the little grey cells. And my Professor Shantanu Bose is similarly, he's an intellectual detective. He believes in detecting using the brain, the intellectual prowess which he has and his wide knowledge base. So I decided to continue with him because he was the ideal detective in my eyes.
Since in your words, the detective is like an alter ego to you, you must feel a lot more connected to those books that do encapsulate his essence.
No, I cannot really play favorites because it's like asking a mother that which of your children is your favorite. So because murder mysteries are in a different league, my academic books are in a different league. So all those books are close to me. But certainly I do have a soft corner for crime fiction because it's my forte and my love.
Of course. And it's such an exciting plot. You must have, discovered a lot of interesting facts and information while researching for the story. Can you share some of that with us?
Actually, Vidushi, this latest novel of mine, The Secret of Leifeng Pagoda, is a very interesting novel and I think it should be widely read by people because it is a conspiracy thriller and it is based on the real events. And the real events that it is based upon are the mysterious death of Indian nuclear scientists and defense personnel, which has actually happened. So what happened was several years ago, I read a newspaper report about the murder, or you could say the mysterious death of nuclear scientists. And when I read it, I was blown away and I thought, why aren't people talking about it? Why aren't we concerned that our nuclear energy is under threat? Our space organization is under threat. Our defense organization is under threat. So I started doing research, and the more research I did, the more insidious things I found. And I found that there was a conspiracy to make sure that India does not progress in the field of science and technology. So that forms the bedrock of this particular novel. Everything that I have written is true and based on real research. For instance, I don't know how many of our listeners are aware that there were 4 assassination attempts on Jawaharlal Nehru. I don't know how many of our listeners are aware that during the Indochina War, we had interned thousands of Chinese Indians who were born in India in the Deoli prisoner of war camp in Rajasthan. So these are facts which the public at large are not aware of, and all these things I have written about. So certainly this book is very important and I feel people should read it and talk about it.
Yeah, it is definitely very important. And I'm even more glad that you're going to reach a wider audience now because the book is also being adapted by Almighty Motion Picture. So how is that experience for you?
Yeah, that's certainly very exciting. What happened was I'm in Dehradun. I'm not in touch with any of the people in the media, etc. So it's all thanks to my literary agent, Anish Chandy, who has this agency. And he picked up this book and pitched it to Almighty Motion Pictures. And they have taken it up for adaptation. When it happens, let's see. I cannot say, cannot really comment on it. Well, it's very exciting for me.
We're all eagerly waiting for it. You have this vast experience as an entertainment writer and also as an educational writer. What are some things that you've found about yourself along the way?
Well, about myself, I haven't really thought that what I have found about myself. I would say that what I have found is that I was surprised to see that I have a great capacity for hard work. I am extremely hardworking, extremely diligent and a perfectionist. And when I have to complete a project and when a deadline is looming, I give up eating, sleeping, resting, and I'm at my computer working very, very hard. And what stands me in good stead are the words of Aristotle that excellence is not a matter of chance. It is a matter of habit. So if you're excellent, you will be excellent in everything. So these are the things which I have found for myself, that I do strive for excellence. I work very hard and I do not allow myself to do any kind of shoddy or careless work.
Also, something I found really fascinating is how you decided to shift your stream from science to humanities. At what age did you finalize that decision? And what was your thought process behind it?
Actually, my career path has been really convoluted. And I think this would be interesting for the young generation who are listening as well as their parents, who sometimes have to face the situation where the children say that, oh, we've studied science, now we don't want to do this, or we want to do something entirely different. So what I feel is that in life, you come across certain aspects or certain areas where you find certainly great interest. Suddenly you find great interest in that and you should feel free to change your path. And this is what happened with me. I was greatly interested in science and I wanted to go abroad and do genetic engineering. But that didn't happen for some reason. That was my first love. And my second love was books. I loved reading stories. And then I decided to go in for stories, which was literature. And then I was also a very curious person and I wanted to find out and investigate things. So then I became a journalist. And being a journalist, your life is not very routine-like. So then I got into academics. Then I thought academics can become boring. So then I got into writing books. So it's like that.
Lots of change, very dynamic.
Yes.
But it must have been a very tough decision and you must have had a lot of support in your journey.
Yes. All my family members have supported me all the way. And it was tough. Certainly, I'm smiling and laughing about it. But yeah, at the time when I had to make the turn, it was involved a lot of heartache, a lot of introspection, a lot of doubts about whether I am doing the right thing or not. But it turned out okay because I was true to myself.
Okay. Tell me, growing up, who were the authors that inspired your work? And even now, what do you find so enticing about their writing?
Well, growing up, my favorite was Enid Blyton. I loved Enid Blyton. I loved her works. I would read and reread all her books, beginning with Noddy and all those kind of books. I really loved them. And then I went on to read her famous 5 and the investigative books that she has written. Then, of course, I graduated to Agatha Christie, Arthur Conan Doyle, Ayn Rand, Desmond Harris, Leon Orris, Sidney Sheldon, the list goes on, and Dan Brown. So I find them really interesting because they are fast-paced thrillers, is what I love. So that's what it is.
You know, I'd love to keep talking to you all day. I don't want this session to end at all. But since we're in a bit of a time crunch, I'll just end our conversation by asking you, what is one life lesson that you'd like to share with the budding writers in the audience?
Actually, it's difficult to say one life lesson. For budding writers, I would say that if you want to be a writer, you must read a lot and don't think of shortcuts. Hard work is the key to success. But one life lesson, if you ask me, I would like to quote the words of John Milton, the great poet. He said that the mind, in its own place and by itself, can make a heaven of hell and a hell of heaven. That means your mind can change whatever the situation you are in. So look at things using the right attitude and the right perspective. So that's the one life lesson which I try to keep in my mind at all times. And I think this would be useful to all the listeners.
Definitely, ma'am. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Ruby Gupta. It was a delight speaking with you.
Thank you so much. My pleasure entirely.